Hello and welcome everyone. My name is Laurel Grodman. I'm Managing Director of Admissions. I'm also a proud graduate of Yale SOM class of 2006. So I'm so happy to have all of you join us here today for our program overview, which is the kickoff event of our week-long virtual open house. So I'll spend the next 20 minutes or so introducing you to the Yale School of Management, and I'll highlight 3 things that you should know about our MBA curriculum and our unique approach to business education. I'll also be sure to reserve a few minutes to talk about the Yale SOM Community, which is a community that has not only become my professional network, but really very much my family as well. I will be sure to pause at that point and take questions from you after the presentation. I'd love for those questions to be primarily focused on curriculum and community. If you do have admissions related questions, I'll provide you with some next steps and some avenues for getting those questions answered as well. I do ask you to use the Q&A function to submit any questions that you have along the way. We won't be checking the chat function, but my colleagues, Kristen and Diana, who are working behind the scenes, would be more than happy to receive your questions through the Q&A function. And so without further ado, let's get started. So given that you are considering an MBA and have chosen to attend this event today, I'm going to assume that many of you have a few things in common. I believe that most of you are looking for some kind of change, maybe even transformation. Maybe you want to expand your leadership capacity or your opportunities to lead. Maybe you're looking to make a pivot in your career or change the trajectory of your career. I'm guessing ultimately you want to have a greater impact, whether it's on people, on organizations, or maybe even society. I say this because I see these as common threads throughout candidates who apply to the Yale School of Management: a desire for change and to have a greater impact. And so if this resonates with you, I think our mission to educate leaders for business and society will as well. Our mission means we aim to develop leaders who can think broadly about the challenges we face in an increasingly complex world, and who have the ability to be decision makers in environments that call for multiple influencers, stakeholders, and consequences. And we believe our mission has never been more relevant than it is today. And so in thinking about that mission, there are 3 things about the SOM experience that make it distinctive among top MBA programs, and each exists very much in support of that mission. And so we are the business school that is most integrated with its home university. We are distinctively global, and we aim to be the best source of elevated leaders for all sectors and regions. So I'll spend the next few minutes touching upon each of these, talking about how we deliver upon each and how you as a student will benefit. And so starting with the first, our integration with our home university. When you join the Yale SOM community, you truly are a member of the broader Yale University community and all the opportunities and privileges that come with that. And perhaps the most prominent example of this that comes to mind is the second year of your curriculum, which is comprised entirely of elective courses. Those electives can be taken in any quantity, in any classroom throughout the entire university. So if you have an interest in learning how to speak Mandarin, you can take language classes at Yale College. If you are interested in issues around sustainability, you can take courses at the Yale School of the Environment. One of the most popular courses over time outside of the School of Management for our students has actually been a course in visual storytelling at the world-renowned Yale School of Drama. The majority of our students will take at least one course outside of SOM during their time here, and many will even take more than that. Some of our students are actually pursuing dual degrees during their time at SOM, and that can be with the medical school, the law school, public health, environment, architecture, and so on. If you're interested in doing that, that's wonderful. And if you're sitting next to someone in your class who's pursuing a joint degree, that's also great, because it means that you're learning alongside someone who's studying another subject matter area very deeply, and that's only going to add to the richness of the classroom conversation. And so I've been focusing mostly on the in-classroom experience, but there's so many opportunities to connect with Yale across campus as well. Every year, there's myriad speakers that come to campus, Nobel Prize winners, NGO presidents, government leaders, and so on, and you have access to all of that. Our students host major student-led conferences in partnership with students across the university, like the Yale Healthcare Conference. They start businesses through the Sci Center for Innovative Thinking at Yale, which is the hub for entrepreneurship throughout the entire university. So students at the Yale School of Management truly benefit from everything that Yale University as a whole has to offer. So moving on to the next really distinctive feature, we are a distinctively global business school. All business schools, I think, these days aim to teach global business, and some have even developed partnerships with an international business school to help accomplish this. But rather than take this somewhat narrow approach, about 7 years ago, Yale SOM took the lead in establishing what we call the Global Network for Advanced Management, which really cracked open the opportunity for innovation in this space. Students at Yale have unique and expansive opportunities to gain global perspective, not only due to what goes on within the Yale SOM classroom, but really with how our students engage in the world. And so much of this, as I mentioned, is fueled through that global network for advanced management. It's a network of 32 schools spanning 6 continents, and it gives our students access to top business schools across the whole world. And so the global network is really the fuel for what we call our global studies requirement. Yale SOM was actually the first business school to require a deep global engagement as part of your core studies. The pandemic has forced us to pause on travel and shift to more virtual options, but in a typical academic year, around 60 global courses are available to SOM students throughout the 5 different platforms you see here. So just to give you some recent examples of this, during our most recent pre-pandemic offering, there were 8 international experience courses to choose from in locations like China, Israel, Japan, Peru, South Africa, and others. And that's a half semester long course that culminates in a trip to an international business hub that really lets you connect and be immersed in the local business environment and culture of a given geography. Another example are our global network weeks. So in October 2019 alone, again, this is pre-restricted travel, there were 19 global network weeks offered, including negotiation and influence at UNSW Business School in Australia. There was entrepreneurship and intrapreneurship in China at Fudan University, strategic innovation and management in emerging markets at EGADE in Mexico. So Yale's global reach gives you the platform to study business operating in diverse cultural contexts, gives you a chance to travel to new continents, connect with peers from dozens of countries across the globe, to appreciate differences and to place experiences and lessons into larger contexts of global challenges. Okay, so hopefully you are getting a sense of how important connectedness is to our mission, whether it's being connected across campus or connected globally. Our unique integrated curriculum is yet another connective force, and one that's designed to allow you to connect the dots among things that really matter when you're solving business challenges. So whereas most business schools teach a core MBA curriculum that's organized by disciplines in a very kind of siloed way, we've developed an integrated core curriculum based on what we call organizational perspectives. So, the courses at the core of our core curriculum are called the organizational perspectives because they look at how organizations work through the lens of various constituencies, such as the customer, the investor, the executive, and so on. In addition, the courses approach organizational challenge by drawing from multiple academic disciplines at once. So I'm going to pull out the example of sourcing and managing funds. So this is a course that is co-taught, and it covers functions such as accounting, operations, strategy, and finance. The core courses are all also linked together to form a seamless whole. So all of the organizational perspectives courses are meant to work together in that way. So faculty who teach in the core work together and sometimes weave a single case study through 2 courses, for instance, to demonstrate how a particular issue can affect different aspects of an organization and can be viewed through different lenses. So again, this approach to the MBA core curriculum is unique to Yale. It's a much more dynamic learning environment, and it's reflective of the skills that you'll need to execute in the real world. When you're faced with challenges in the real world, rarely are they neatly handed to you to focus on a single discipline. You need to pull from multiple disciplines, multiple lenses, multiple ways of thinking to really be able to attack them head on. One unique feature of this I'd also like to highlight is our raw case methodology. And this is a great example of Yale's approach to leadership. So raw cases are meant to replicate the way that individuals access and use information in the real world. So in a traditional business school case, which can certainly be a useful teaching mechanism as well, in a traditional case, you're given a 10 or 15 page packet of information with all of the information you need to answer kind of a discrete set of questions on a given topic. But they really don't echo the way that you encounter challenges in the real world. So by contrast, Yale raw cases, which are developed in-house, are big and complex and messy. You'll get primary materials, secondary materials, financial statements, media bites, all sorts of information that you'll need to sift through, determine what's important to solving the case at hand. And as I mentioned, because these cases are so rich and dynamic, you have the opportunity to study a single case from multiple organizational perspectives courses and look at new and distinct things in each of them. Okay, so as I promised, before I open for your questions, I'd really like to say a few words about the Yale SOM community. Being an alumna of the school and having worked at SOM for nearly the past 11 years, I can tell you that the people who make up Yale SOM's community, the students, the faculty, the staff, the alumni, are truly our biggest competitive advantage and what makes this place a world-class program. Yale SOM students are a really diverse group of individuals who take a true interest in one another's pursuits and really share a passion for the school's mission. And it creates a really welcoming and collaborative environment for you to learn and develop into a leader. We're very intentional and thoughtful in crafting a diverse class of students, not just based on demographics, but on your experiences, your interests, your perspectives. Diversity, equity, and inclusion are truly a focus at the school, both inside and outside the classroom, where students engage in exploring identity, learning across difference, and building inclusive leadership skills. As you can hopefully see from the images rolling through, students are engaged in a lot during their time here through conferences and cultural events, athletics, extracurriculars, and social activities, and lots more. I do want to highlight a couple of unique community initiatives at SOM that really enable our students to bring their full selves to the MBA experience. So the two that I want to highlight here, one is a tradition that I myself took part in and was one of my very favorite things at Yale SOM and dates back almost to the origins of the school. And the second is a more recent tradition that's developed over the last several years. So the first is the internship fund. So this is a student-led initiative to raise money for classmates who take summer internships in the public sector or nonprofit sector. The fundraising itself involves a lot of fun events throughout the year. So there's a talent show where our assistant dean for admissions may or may not display his dance moves. There's a really fun live auction that takes place at the end of the whole thing, where you can bid on experiences like having a professor cook a meal for you or go on a professor pub crawl, and all sorts of other fun things to bid on. Ultimately, about 20% of our first year students end up benefiting from the internship fund. In recent years, those individuals have received supplements of between $800 and $1,000 of support per week for the summer months. And I just love this effort because it's student run, it's for the benefit of the students, and it's for this collective sense of really enabling one another to pursue their passions and do some good in the world. The second example of an SOM tradition that I think is really kind of emblematic of our community, as I mentioned, is a more recent one, and it's called SOM Voices. So this is a weekly student gathering where around 2 or 3 students will share a personal story or an experience or talent with their classmates. It's done in an intimate setting. It's open to students only. And the stories themselves can be moving, they can be inspiring, sometimes they're funny, sometimes they're sad, but the idea is that you're setting aside some time in your week to learn about your classmates outside of what's on their resume or how they approach a case study in your class. It's really a safe space for students to get a chance, like I said, to share their story. And I think it truly elicits a culture of mutual respect and trust that is really vital to the SOM fabric. So I always say the best way to get to know our community, though, is to engage with members of it. So I encourage you to reach out to current students to learn about their experience. On our website, you can find a list of student ambassadors who are available to connect with you as a prospective student. We're also hosting a number of online student panels and student conversation sessions throughout the coming weeks and months that you can register for. So I encourage you to check those out as well. Okay, so at this time, I am going to turn to my colleague, Kristen Mercuri, who's going to be sharing some of the questions that she's been gathering behind the scenes. Feel free to continue to submit your questions. As I mentioned before, please use the Q&A function. We're not going to be actively checking the chat function, so if you can direct them that way. We'll sift through to find the most common questions. Please do try to keep your questions broadly applicable to the group. We're going to focus on questions related to the curriculum and community primarily. And if you have questions about the application and admissions process, I'm going to encourage you to join one of the many opportunities we have to answer those sorts of questions. So if you haven't already registered, I believe there's still room in the Inside the Application literally event tomorrow, where my colleague Jolene Monson will literally walk you through the 2021-2022 application. You can also register for our August 6th application tips event, where we go into a lot of the specific components and get your questions answered on completing your SOM application. You can also always register for one of our small group admissions Q&A sessions that are hosted twice a week during most weeks of the summer. And finally, if you do have questions specific to your individual candidacy, you're always welcome to email the address that you see on the slide here, mba.admissions@yale.edu, and we'll respond to you directly through that. And so if you give me just a moment, I am going to move over to Kristen's questions. All right, sorry, just bear with me for one moment. I think we've got lots of good questions coming in already. All right, so first one, which is probably something on many folks' minds as you're entering the application experience. What is Yale SOM looking for in a candidate? And so I like this question because it gives me a chance to be very transparent, that there isn't some secret sauce that we're not willing to tell our candidates about, but that we're secretly looking for behind the scenes. I think we're very upfront, and I think you'll find this as you go through the application walkthrough or any of our other application-oriented events. We're primarily looking for three things, and every aspect of our application, which we keep quite streamlined, is in service of helping us understand these things. The first is we're looking to understand your academic potential. It's an academically rigorous MBA program, and we want to make sure that we're bringing people into the program who are set up to thrive and really take full advantage of the program. So we're looking for evidence in a lot of different places for your academic potential. And it does not necessarily mean it must be demonstrated in spades across every single dimension of your application, but we're looking again for evidence that you'll be able to prosper in a truly rigorous program. The second thing that we're looking for is evidence of your professional impact. So by that, I mean your potential for leadership and your ability to collaborate with others. And so we gain a lot of information from the professional experience that you've had to date and what you've been able to accomplish in that realm. And then third, we're looking for engaged community members. As hopefully you got a sense of already, being a part of the Yale SOM community is a really active experience of engagement. So we're looking for people who are going to be engaged during their time at SOM, and then engaged in the communities and the organizations that you become a part of after you head out from SOM. So that's in a nutshell of what we're really looking for in a candidate. And like I said, through some of these other experiences that we're offering, I think we'll get to touch on the specifics of how we're evaluating each of those components. Okay, the next question I've got from Kristen is, what careers resources are available to students and which are most impactful in landing jobs? So not surprisingly, I'm sure that many of you have careers on your mind as you're going through this MBA exploration process. It tends to be a very primary driver of why you're engaging in this experience, because you're looking to make an impact in the careers and the organizations that you join from here. And so I'll first mention that we are going to have a dedicated event this Thursday with our Assistant Dean for the Career Development Office, Abigail Keys, where we'll be able to dive into a lot of specifics around career. So definitely, if this is an interest of yours, join us for that. But I'm happy to touch upon some things as well. I actually spent 4 years working in our Career Development Office prior to joining admissions. And I loved doing this at SOM because it gave me a chance to connect with students and with employers on something that is really central to the experience. And so as I think about resources available to students, I think they fall into two primary buckets. There is the Career Development Office and all of the programming and all the individual advising that they offer. And then there is the part about the part that comes from your peers, your fellow students and second years, and the clubs and opportunities that come from that. So touching briefly just upon the career development aspect of it, there are certain skills that are germane to any career search. No matter what industry or function that you're looking to join, you need to be able to tell your story. You need to be able to put together a resume and a cover letter. You need to be prepared to interview. You need to know about even how to go through the job search process and identify organizations that might be a good match for you. And so those sorts of skills, the Career Development Office can teach in a more collective setting, because as I said, they are sort of fundamental to any career search that you're going through. So that's certainly an aspect of your curriculum. But I think the part that many people truly appreciate and truly differentiates Yale SOM is the level of individual collaboration that goes on with the Career Development Office. The CDO conducts thousands of individual advising sessions each year and really helps you get to the finish line of where you're looking to go every step of the way, in whatever degree of collaboration that you're looking for. And then, as I said, layered onto that is your experience with your classmates. We have professional clubs in any industry or function that you can imagine, where you're going through the experience with a set of peers and with second year leaders who have been through the experience ahead of you and have a lot of wisdom to share for that. Our second year students, also a subset of them, become what we call career advisors. And so those are second years who work directly with the CDO and with you to once again put a little bit more of a specific industry or functional focus on your career search. And between that and the professional clubs, hopefully when we go back into the non-virtual world, we'll be able to resume this in person, but they host a lot of job treks every year, both to regions of the country and that are sort of industry specific job treks that give you a chance to see a day in the life at a given organization. And often that is in conjunction with alums. And what I'll say is, I guess the third prong of career resources are our alumni network. It's an incredibly engaged network of individuals who are very much looking to pay it forward. So I think you'll find the alumni network at Yale SOM is a really important aspect of your career search as well. Okay. I think the next question that may be on some of your minds that will hopefully, fingers crossed, be a little bit less of a pressing topic in a year's time, when many of you might be thinking about matriculating, is what is SOM going to look like in the fall? Are we returning to in person? Is this going to are we going to continue in some sort of hybrid format? And so, again, my hope is that by the time many of those on this call would be thinking to matriculate, we will be a year beyond where we are right now. But the intention is to return to an entirely in-person experience in the coming year. There is certainly a lot to be learned from the virtual experience that we had over the course of last year, and I do think there are positive learnings from that, such as that in order to bring in a speaker into any given classroom, it doesn't necessarily have to be an in-person experience. It allows for a much more dynamic classroom, I think, to be able to think outside the realm of the physical space. But when it comes to a student experience, we very much highly value the experience of being an on-campus residential program. And so our intention is to return to that this fall. We're eagerly awaiting welcoming our students back in just a little bit over a month's time from now. And obviously, you know, as we spoke about the global studies requirement, we do need to kind of understand what the global public health outlook is before understanding how we can return to a more in-person format for that. But our intention is certainly to return to as much of an in-person on the ground experience as we can. Okay, so we've got lots of good questions lined up here. So I'm going to be try to be a little brief. All right, so Ty asks, how do second-year students typically decide on their electives? I understand that most or all graduate courses are available and students pursue interests, but are there counselors present to assist in which electives could be a good fit? I would say that you will have opportunity to get input from a lot of different resources during the time you're at SOM. I tend to think your classmates will often be the most valuable resources here, particularly through the clubs as you are you know, thinking about what is going to benefit your professional pursuits. But it tends to be, you know, your classmates, you know, your direct peers or second-year students, you know, who are able to provide this insight, having just gone through these experiences and being able to kind of highlight ways in which it might benefit you. Our faculty is extremely open to interacting with students as well. I'm sure if asked, they would be more than happy to share insight and sort of guide within this process. But I think a lot of that guidance just comes from being a part of the community and speaking to others and connecting with others who have similar interests. Sometimes it's great to connect with others who have really different interests from you, because that might be what ultimately helps you identify that course that wouldn't have been something that you would have landed upon yourself. But I think just being engaged in things, I guess also as I think about you know, identifying courses to take throughout the university, part of the benefit in connecting in your sort of extracurricular pursuits with students from across the university who aren't studying at SOM is that they're able to provide those insights to you as well. Good question. All right. I've got all right, a question from Liv. My friend who graduated from SOM a couple of years ago mentioned that she took a class at Columbia during her second year. I couldn't find much information about partnerships with other local universities, not global. So I'm wondering if you can address this. Thanks so much. So I will say we do have a lot of formal and then quasi-formal relationships through the global network. Part of the benefit of being able to take being part of the global network is that you do have access to coursework throughout the world and not just throughout the university. So I find that most often between the experiences offered at the School of Management, offered through the broader university, and then offered through the global network, you've already got so many options available to you. But generally speaking, I do find that this is a place where students look to pursue their passions and find ways of doing it. And so while I definitely don't know sort of the specific channel that someone would have taken to a school, we have an extremely responsive group in our student services department that I know works with a lot of individual students to figure out how to pursue their passions. So again, I think if anything, our students tend to be, I think, overwhelmed with choice rather than feeling as though there are not enough options within the sort of many layers of experiences that you're offered here. But for those who are looking for something beyond, I think, once again, it's a very sort of responsive administration to thinking about those options. Okay. So I've got a question from Daniel. Does SOM invite industry leaders to talk to classes about their fields? So the short answer to that is yes. The bigger answer is, I think it's not just in the classroom. There are a lot of opportunities to connect with industry leaders throughout your time at Yale SOM. So certainly in the classroom is one demonstration of that. And I think many professors do bring practitioners into the classroom, either to walk through a case that they were perhaps the protagonist in, or to support a concept that you're studying. And like I said earlier, I think Having done this in a virtual setting for the last year, I can only imagine that the opportunities to bring leaders into the classroom will be more expanded from here on out. But beyond that, there's lots of opportunity as well. One of the hallmark events of orientation, so the very first week that you started SOM, has traditionally been something called career immersion, which brings I think something close to 70 alums to campus each year to talk about their experiences in different industries and functions. And so it's a series of rotating panels throughout the day that give you an opportunity to hear from people at different stages in their career to explore whether there are options that sound interesting to you to pursue. Our clubs bring speakers in. The sort of capstone course of the organizational perspective series, the executive, is certainly a great forum for bringing speakers in. And there's various sort of leaders colloquia throughout the year that go under different names. So you will have a lot of opportunity to engage in industry leaders, during your time at SOM. Okay. All right, a question from Pranav. How do Silver Scholars fit into the SOM community? Are there curriculum differences? So brief overview, Silver Scholars is a unique program that we have at SOM that is available to students coming directly out of their undergraduate degree or looking to accelerate their careers. And so the program is structured as you spend 1 year in the core curriculum alongside every other MBA student, fully integrated into that experience. You will then take a pause and engage in a 1 year, or it can even be a more than 1 year internship to gain some professional experience before returning to the classroom for your elective year, which is your final year of the program. So it's at minimum a 3-year program with that internship experience in the middle. But for some who want to spend some more time gaining professional experience in sort of amid their degree program, that option is available as well. It is fully, Silver Scholars are fully integrated into the SOM community. And in fact, they're integrated into, I think, sort of an additional layer of that community as well, because they're entering and graduating with different classes and has an opportunity to get to know an even more sort of expansive network of students. I am part of the Silver Scholar interview process, and I often get this question from Silver Scholars who might feel a little self-conscious about them coming into this without any professional work experience. Is it going to be very clear that, am I going to bring less to the classroom? And my answer is always, I think usually there's a point in the semester where it becomes clear that someone is a Silver Scholar and their classmates had no idea. Silver Scholars bring a tremendous amount to the experience as well, and have been deeply engaged community members during their time as undergraduates, and often have very impressive internships. And so I think many are surprised to in fact learn that the person they've been sitting next to for the entire year did not in fact have full-time professional experience prior to starting at SOM. So they're very much a part of the community, and they tend to form a community amongst one another as well, which is a sort of nice additional group to have within SOM at large. Okay, I have a question from, I believe it's Venetia. Beyond the classroom, how can students engage with the faculty? So I think there's a number of ways, and I think as I mentioned earlier, I think the faculty are very open to engaging with students in a variety of ways, above and beyond even what I mentioned earlier, and as I spoke about the internship fund in more social ways. But I think there are students who approach faculty members about doing independent study projects if they're particularly interested in an area of research. Our professors are very, very open to engaging through office hours if you're looking for support within a particular kind of classroom experience. One of my favorite collaborations among students and faculty comes from what we call our discovery projects at the Yale Center for Customer Insights. So the YCCI is a center on campus that is run by our marketing faculty with a deep interest in consumer behavior and consumer insights. And the discovery projects are semester-long 4-credit courses where a group of students serve as consultants to a real-life business organization with a real-life marketing challenge. And so much like any consultant, you've got timeline and deliverables, and you will execute upon that research challenge in conjunction with the faculty supervisors for that. And I think it's a really nice way to engage deeply with faculty members and also get some experience of putting into practice some of the concepts that you're learning in the classroom with a real life business organization. Okay. I have a question from Fern. As a Yale SOM alum, do you have any suggestions to prospective students about something you wish you knew before joining at SOM that would have prepared you to engage in the full SOM experience better? You know, as you can imagine, having been a part of this community for so long, I've had lots of opportunity to think about this and you know, is there anything I would have done differently? And I love so much about my SOM experience that I'm always hesitant to think about tinkering with anything. But I wish ahead of time that I had really internalized the advice that business school is a lot like drinking from a fire hose. There is so much opportunity and so many things that you're going to be incredibly eager to engage in. There's, you know, the academics, as I said, are certainly rigorous. The career search is intense. The social component is intense in that there's so much opportunity to meet new people, join things. I think a not uncommon piece of advice, which I think I would give my former self if I could, is, you know, be reasonable about what you can engage in. There's only so many things that you can do and do well. So the temptation may be there to join, you know, 10 different clubs and kind of be involved peripherally in each, but you're really going to be able to engage deeply in probably, you know, 1, 2, or 3 of them. And so you know, I advise you to just be prepared and sort of gain some comfort with being overwhelmed for a while, but I think it's a good kind of overwhelmed, but also be ready at some point after you've kind of experienced all that there is to offer to kind of narrow things down and decide, okay, I'm really excited about engaging deeply in this, in these handful of areas, and I really feel like I can make a strong impact in that way. Okay. Let's see, I'm just scrolling through. We have so many good questions in here. I'll take one more logistical question because hopefully this will be a quicker one. Will you be conducting in-person interviews or on-campus tours this fall? So the answer is no, not this fall. We are continuing to follow university protocol, and we're not yet able to welcome visitors to campus. And so all of our interviews and all of our engagements will be conducted virtually this year. You know, one benefit of the last year is that I think we've gained a lot of experience in ways to connect with more people who are more spread out throughout the world through the virtual format. And I'll say on interviews in particular, you know, we thought a lot about whether having all of our interviews conducted virtually was the right way to go, and whether that had any impact on the experience, on the evaluation of interviews. And so I'm quite confident that having an in-person interview versus a virtual interview will have no impact on any, you know, candidates' chances of getting in, and we're able to continue to forge meaningful connections through those interviews in the virtual format. Okay, what is something? This is from Kartikeya. What is something a student must experience at Yale outside the classroom? So my personal answer there, hopefully I've given you a sense of some of the things that you can do sort of, you know, classroom-wise across campus. I'd say I'm going to give you a Yale answer, and I'm going to give you a New Haven answer. So the New Haven answer is a super easy one: pizza. New Haven is absolutely known for our pizza. There are intense rivalries across groups of individuals about what the best New Haven pizza is, but the answer is it's all amazing. And so if you're going to come to New Haven for any period of time, you have to experience the pizza. And as a student, you can experience lots of pizza. At Yale, I'll say a personal favorite of mine is the Yale University Art Gallery. It's a beautiful space. It's been renovated and expanded over the past several years. It doesn't have the size of a art gallery in a huge city, but there's a really impressive breadth of artwork that you can experience for free just by walking down the block. So that's one of my personal favorites in the area as well. Okay. I think I've probably got time for one more, and then it'll be time to wrap up. I'll take the very last one that I saw come through. Pranjal's question is, does the school host any pre-MBA classes or events for the incoming class to better prepare them? So a subset of our students who are coming into the class will be invited to something we call Math Camp, which is a 3-day intensive kind of boot camp that's aimed towards preparing those who don't have as strong a quantitative background and maybe didn't study that area or studied it a long time ago and haven't really touched the material in a while, just to feel as though you're prepared to hit the ground running coming into the classroom. And so some of the information that we collect throughout the application process helps us identify who would be a good candidate for Math Camp. So we're actually gearing up for that to happen pretty soon. So with that, I am going to wrap. I'll draw your attention once again to a couple of the events that we've got coming up. We have Inside the App Literally, which is hosted by my colleague Jolene, which will be taking place at 7 o'clock Eastern time tomorrow. And that's going to be a chance to actually go into the application itself and see and hear about some tips and key things to focus on as you start to dive into that. We have Leverage the MBA to Career Changers coming up later this week as well. If you were not able to register for a small group Q&A, please do see our events website. Kristen's going to share a link with you guys in the chat where you can access that. We do host the Q&As in the small group settings 2 times a week throughout the summer months. So hopefully many of you will have a chance to experience that in the coming weeks and months as well. Thank you so much for joining us today. Like I said, this is just the first of events taking place through what I hope will be a really exciting and informative week for you. We're looking forward to more chances to connect with you, both in these big groups, but also a little bit more individually as well. And as I said, the best way to get to learn about the SOM community is to engage with members of it. So I encourage you to reach out to the students in our community, to the admissions office if you have questions. We're happy to point you in the right direction. So thanks so much, everyone, and looking forward to continuing to engage with you in the coming weeks and months.